All right. I would like to call, with the time being 7:15, I'd like to call the Government Operations Committee to order. Can I please have a roll call?
Stem. Petrella.
Here.
Wordall.
Here.
Besner.
Here.
Weber.
Here.
Silkaitis.
Here.
Folks.
Here.
Bongard.
Here.
Munns. Here. Lencioni.
Thank you. First up, we just have just some information-only administrative stuff for video gaming reports. As mentioned, that's information only. Does anyone have any questions on that? No? Okay. First up is item 5A. Chief Keegan is going to talk about possibility of an ordinance amending Title 9.
Thank you, Alderman Weber. So item 5A is
Students, please stay and listen. We're not done yet.
Wow, two got away. And Mr. Weber, you made that look really easy.
Let's go back and get them.
I think the teacher left, actually.
So item 5A is a recommendation to approve an ordinance to amend, not repeal, Title 9, Public Peace, Morals, and Welfare, Chapter 9.09, Fighting, Section 9.09010, Fighting Prohibited of the St. Charles Municipal Code. So as indicated in the agenda item in the packet, we use this ordinance quite widely to combat unruly behavior. Oftentimes, it's tough to discern who the aggressor is, and oftentimes we have mutual combatants, which is really two people fighting. Our ordinance in St. Charles prohibits that. If we do have an obvious aggressive situation, that person would normally be cited and or arrested for assault or battery. So this particular ordinance is used when we cannot discern who the aggressor is and we have public fighting. We did confer with legal counsel after our administrative adjudication hearing officer indicated we had a situation in adjudication where there wasn't mutual combatants. It was a one-sided fight per se, and the victim in this particular case did not want to sign a complaint, so we couldn't go with a battery or an assault, and the hearing officer recommended an amendment to our code. We researched other codes, worked with both Mr. Peppers and our hearing officer, and we came up with the aforementioned amendment. So with that, I would recommend passage of this amendment, and I can answer any questions you might have, or Mr. Peppers.
I do have a question, Chief. How does this, in regards to bar staff, if they have security or something like that, how does that come into play?
I mean, if we're called and we see public fighting, and when I say public fighting, really it's any public place. It doesn't have to be in a public way. It could be in a public establishment like a bar. So if we're called to a tavern or a bar and there's a fight that takes place, absent someone wanting to sign a complaint, our ordinance prohibits fighting of any kind, so we would cite each of the occupants, or each of the offenders rather. In the case that I mentioned, we had one aggressor. The other person did not engage. We still cited that person. And like I previously mentioned, they recommended our hearing officer that we amend our code. So we have a zero tolerance approach. If we are called or summoned or observed fighting of any kind, we cite appropriately. And it's really helped us curb unruly behavior.
So if a bouncer is trying to prevent something or stopping something and the combatant is fighting against them and they're trying to stop, are they included in this then?
The bouncer wouldn't be if they're acting on behalf of the establishment, okay, and they're actually trying to stop behavior from escalating. Most of the time, and when I say most of the time, I'd say the lion's share of our offenses take place outside of that scenario you just gave. It's patrons and or anyone in the street for that matter. It doesn't have to be at a tavern or a liquor establishment. If you're publicly fighting in St. Charles, you're going to be cited.
Okay, thank you. Any questions up here? Go ahead, Brian.
I'm fine with this. The one thing I would like to do is to also include raising the $500 initial fine to $750, which I believe is the maximum we can do per Illinois statute. So I'll make a motion to amend the ordinance Title 9 to include an increase from $500 to $750.
Second.
All right, I have a motion second.
I have a
Any
question.
questions? Go ahead.
Chief, why did you choose to make it $500 for a first offense and $750 for the second originally?
That predates me, Alderman Lencioni, but I'll tell you that the lion's share of our ordinances do have an escalator, so first offenses are typically handled with a lower fine, and then any subsequent offenses is usually handled in an escalating fashion and or going to the maximum. Our maximum fine allowed on any ordinance that's quasi-criminal in other words, like a battery or assault, is $750. So that's just kind of our stance. We do have $500 is pretty substantial, but obviously if the council wants to move to $750, that's entirely your purview.
Okay, do you have a question?
Just a statement, and I appreciate that. We've talked about this in Liquor Commission on occasion. I think the reason I second and I support this too is Nick, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, if we have a zero tolerance insofar as $750 right off the bat, if they go to adjudication, I mean, the judge he or she has the authority to tweak that too. Is that correct?
That's correct. This is a maximum fine.
Right.
So if, based on the facts and the defense, the hearing officer can level a $100 fine. But the max would be, right now it's $500, so all you're doing is increasing the opportunity for perhaps a more egregious event to raise it to $750.
Right. Okay. And I appreciate that, and that would be the rationale that I'm leaning on, is that, we have judges who can use their judgment. We just, use zero tolerance at the beginning and let the adjudication process go through. So that's why I support it.
I have a question for...
Go ahead, Ryan.
No, you can go ahead.
Go ahead, Jamie.
I just have a question for Attorney Peppers about the fine that the judge can change. How frequently does that actually happen?
The judge doesn't change the fine. The judge has the authority from 0 to 750 for the maximum.
Okay.
And then depending on the facts, the judge, or it's actually the hearing officer, not a judge, can then levy a fine depending on what they feel might be appropriate. I mean, it's kind of hard to tell fact by fact, but you may find a fight that he's going to go right to 750 or she'll go right to 750, or maybe a message being sent at 100 has the same effect. So they just have authority and discretion from 0 to 750.
Is it frequent that they are kind of all over the board on that, or do they generally go to the top?
I don't know. I'm not the hearing officer, so I couldn't tell you. Anecdotally, I can tell you that if youth are fighting, it might be a lower fine. If you've got adults who are intoxicated and they're fighting, you might see a higher fine. So what do I mean by factual basis? So it's just a message to who stayed for the hearing, for Mr. Weber.
Go ahead, Ryan.
So we're making this change not because of a concern with trend. We're making this based on a recommendation by
Our hearing officer.
Our hearing officer.
Who's also a licensed attorney.
Because it's too hard to discern, who did what. So you're just basically saying, hey, we have this zero tolerance. But we're not trying to make this change because we see an escalation in these types of citations on a weekly basis.
No, I think just the opposite is true. We've had such a strong stance in the city, a zero tolerance approach, that word's gotten out, to your point about fines. Word's gotten out pretty quickly that we're going to be zero tolerance on certain things, especially in our entertainment district. And so I haven't seen an increase whatsoever. Really what happened was typically you get two people, mutual combatants, fighting. We had a one-off, if you will, where the other party was not engaged in fighting. He did not want to sign a complaint for battery. He was battered. So we cited the aggressor for fighting. The attorney raised an important question during the deliberation. Ultimately, the person was found liable, but we were asked to look at our ordinance. When we did so, we reached out to other communities. Mr. Peppers and I talked, Mrs. McGuire and I talked, so we came up with a little bit more of a lenient or flexible ordinance. You don't have to have, our previous stated pretty simply, no person shall physically fight with another without legal justification. We added, it's unlawful for any person to fight or intentionally provoke a fight with physical contact of another in the city. So that scenario that I just mentioned, that one person who's the aggressor, a victim doesn't want to sign a complaint, we are in very solid footing citing that aggressor for fighting.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure, because obviously the topic of bars in this community comes up quite a bit of, what type of community we are. So I guess my question to this side of the aisle would be, why are we making the jump to 750 if this recommendation was based on our hearing officer, and to the contrary, we've developed a pretty good reputation of being under control, and we don't see escalation in this type? Because I just want to be mindful that we're not sending a message like, hey, we've got a problem, and we're now starting to pull at levers here to make sure that we can get it under control. So I'm just looking for a little more clarification as to why we're making that jump, when at the end of the day, a judge can basically do whatever they want. We could set it at 100, and they could shoot to 750. So want to make sure that
I'm not sure that if they set it to 100, they can't exceed and go above to 750. This gives him the tool he needs to set a zero tolerance policy. I don't see anyone in this community saying, you know what, let's make sure it's low and for fighting. Why not maximize it, give him the tools he needs to do what he needs to do, and that's it. I don't think anybody's going to look at tonight's meeting and say, oh my God, things are out of control. I really don't. No.
Hey, go ahead, Paul, you have a question?
Just before, so there was the one word change, but it was 500 and 750 before?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Mark.
How often are you guys called out in a month for something like this? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but just...
It ebbs and flows. A lot of it has to do with weather and special events and things like that. But I'll just say on average, half dozen probably fights a month.
Go ahead, Ron.
See, if you're going to do zero tolerance, this is a way to do it. You start right off the bat. The step thing is a nice idea, but you want to do zero tolerance, I completely agree. Start at the top and let the judge decide. That way he can go up to 750, or she, whoever the judge is. So I'd be in favor of making it 750 in this instance, without hesitation.
Sure. What does it do? So we're voting on this amendment, and then we'll vote if we change it on the entire motion. Is that correct?
So we're going to vote on the amendment to change the first offense from 500 to 750. So that's the vote. So that's what we have a motion and second. Roll call, please.
Petrella?
Yes.
Wirbel?
Yes.
Besner?
Yes.
Sokaya?
Yes.
Folks?
Yes.
Vanguard?
yes.
Munns?
Yes.
Lencioni?
Yes.
That motion carries, amended. All right. Next up, we have item 6A. Chief Swanson's going to talk about a resolution authorizing an intergovernmental agreement. Go ahead, Chief.
Mr. Chairman, other persons of the committee, I'm here tonight to request approval of the new MAVIS agreement. MAVIS is the mutual aid box alarm system. It's the automatic and mutual aid system throughout Kane County and the entire state of Illinois. It's actually expanded into Wisconsin, Indiana, and Iowa. Every once in a while, they have to update the agreement. It's been about 12 years or so since the agreement was updated. This is the system where we can get fire, EMS, or any other kind of specialized rescue assistance from any community within Illinois or surrounding states if we have to. It'd probably be a disaster if we had to call in Wisconsin, but this is beneficial to not only our community but the other communities. Basically, we help them when they have a major problem. They help us when we have one. Probably best demonstrated for our community during the Pheasant Run fire of May 2022. We had 24 communities come in from throughout DuPage, McHenry, Kane, and DeKalb County, I believe, to help us with that fire. It was all done through the MAVIS agreement, which allows us to seamlessly and quickly summon the help that we need. We've also responded as far away as Rockford, Ottawa, Utica when they had the tornado to assist other communities. So it works both ways. We help people, they help us. This is the legal parameters on how it works, and it also keeps the city safe from liability. Each community has the liability for their own resources. We don't bring in any liability on us by bringing in people from other towns. So I'm here to answer any questions, but I would
Any questions?
request approval.
Just, I certainly support this. It's important, and I've worked with fire departments, and MAVIS is important, of course. Just, maybe I'm just getting too far in the weeds. This is a 2024 agreement, correct?
The master agreement was finalized by the MAVIS organization October of 22.
Oh, so that's why it's
and we have
22,
to approve it to stay in MAVIS by the end of this calendar year, 23. So currently, the Tri-Cities are going through the approval process.
That makes sense. Okay. Just curious about that.
So it's this whole area is kind of approving it at this time.
Perfect.
Any other questions? No? See none, I'll look for a
Move for
motion.
approval.
Second.
Moved by David, seconded by Brian. Roll call, please.
Petrilla?
Yes.
Wirball?
Yes.
Besner?
Yes.
Felkowitz?
Yes.
Folks?
Yes.
Bongard?
Yes.
Munns?
Yes.
Montioni?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you very much, Chief. Next up, we have item 7A. Bill Hanna, our Director of Finance, is going to make a presentation regarding a resolution authorizing approval of a 3-year agreement for professional auditing services from Sickett LLP. Go ahead, Bill.
Thank you, Chair. As the committee is aware, the city just completed its audit of its financial statements as of April 30th, 2023. That was the last year of a 5-year engagement that the city had with Sickett to provide those professional auditing services. During that time, Sickett performed at a high level. They met all of their deadlines, and they made sure that the city was able to meet its financial reporting deadlines, as well as compliance with all grant deadlines during that time. Due to their high level of responsiveness, the city requested Sickett to submit a new 3-year proposal. There are many factors going into the selection of a professional auditing firm, such as quality of services, experience, knowledge of the industry, and other factors as well. There's also been a lot of turbulence in the public accounting industry due to recruitment and retention issues, which have made it difficult for some firms to meet their deadlines. Despite some of these challenges, Sickett did provide a proposal which was attached for an increase of only 1.9% in auditing fees for 2024 and a 2.7% increase for 2025 and 2026. The proposal they submitted is attached for review. Staff's recommendation is to accept the proposal for the next 3 years. This will also provide the city with engagement stability during this time, as we are expected to see some transitions with finance personnel over the next several years. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Bill.
Yes.
Any questions up here? Go ahead, Ryan.
I would move for approval.
You move for approval, seconded by Lencioni. Roll call, please.
Petrilla?
Yes.
Wirball?
Yes.
Besner?
Yes.
Felkowitz?
Yes.
Folks?
Yes.
Bongard?
Yes.
Munns?
Yes.
Montioni?
Yes.
That motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bill. Next up, we have public comment. Any public comment? Seeing none. Any additional items from council or staff? I do not see any. We have no reason for an executive session tonight. I'm looking for a motion
So
to
moved.
adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Wirball, seconded by Petrilla. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Always reminds me of the Nay.
Don't fight.